Okay, the little 125cc China Hooptie quad is now complete. When I picked this up at the beginning of June 2023, it was basically a bike that needed a bit of work. The casings were all flat, the brake handles were pretty much missing. The hydraulic one was here, but it was broken. The manual one was sitting off to the side, but it was broken as well. The on-off switch was here, but it had melted wires. Overall, the body was decent. I started off with a fairly decent body. It pretty much had just about everything it would need to run, and I was actually able to get it running with everything it had on it. I ended up hot wiring it. Someone had definitely started work on it. It did originally have a brand new ignition switch, but I did remove it, and I made a hot wire piece, basically taking two of the wires, connected together into the plug to hot wire it to get it to run. As you can see now, it actually has three lights on the back. The two on the left and right are original. The one in the middle is the one I added. It is just strictly a brake light. I'll show in a second what this thing does. The racks have been all painted. The front grille has been painted. The handlebars have been painted. Some of the suspension pieces on the bottom have also been painted. It's got a brand new front brake handle, rear brake handle. The front one also includes the throttle. It has a brand new ignition switch, on-off switch. Definitely a lot of back and forth with Amazon on this. Parts were incorrect, some parts were damaged when I received them. Basically going from that, even parts that matched the pictures were not the correct ones sent out. It definitely took a little bit of extra time on that. It's got a brand new battery. It's got a brand new carburetor. It runs perfectly. It actually starts with no choke. The casings are in good condition, but they do go flat over time. So they're not horrible. Like I said, they're in very good condition. And overall, they got decent tread on them, and they still have nubbies on them as well. So that's one issue it does have. It's not a major issue though. It's got fresh, clean oil in the engine. This is a 4-stroke, which is nice. And when I first saw the pictures, I noticed it was a 4-stroke. I was happy, and I was willing to bid on it and put a little bit of money forward on this bike. I'm into it for roughly $400, give or take a bit. That's with the battery. So I've been looking up prices on these. They go for anywhere from $600 to $1,200. I'm probably going to sell this one for $600, since it's not perfect, but it's decent, and it's definitely a good training bike. Most likely my neighbor is buying it. I got to communicate with them a bit more and find out, but I will fire it up for you in a second to show you that it does run. Also, the safety switches all work as well, so you have to have the brake on to start it, which is nice. I'm happy all those do work. Whenever I first put this together, it had a harness on it, but the harness was damaged. It had some melted wires in a few spots, and really I did not want to use that harness. Luckily, it did come with a replacement harness, so that's the harness I did end up using. I had to switch over some of the connectors to the replacement harness to make it work, but everything did work out in the end, and everything does work correctly. I do still have some spare parts for this. I have a spare voltage regulator, and I have a spare CDI, which is two things that are good to have kicking around. Let's click on the key. I'll first turn on the headlights. It actually has high beams and low beams, which is pretty cool. Around to the back. As you can see, the outer two are working. This harness, I mentioned in a video, it would be yesterday technically, from whenever this was made. I was debating on what to do with the rear taillights. Originally, this harness would have been for a bike with a single tail light, but a dual filament bulb. Basically, one would be the running lights and one would be the brake lights. So I wired it up as two tail lights that are actually the running lights, so they're on right now, and I added the brake light, which I'll demonstrate right now. As you can see, the brake light is on right now, and it's completely separate from the left and right lights and the headlights. So I can actually turn off the headlights, and the brake light is still on. Really, there was no need to do this, but I didn't want to leave the extra wire in there for nothing, and I figured this was only 20 bucks on Amazon, so I bought it and installed it. Originally, I had the two hots together, so actually when you'd put the brakes on, the headlights would flash, and really I could not leave it like that. I kind of had a brain fart. It was kind of late whenever I got the wiring finished up on this. It was hot, I was tired, I needed to get it done. So anyways, that's how I ended up doing it. I ended up pulling the wiring harness back apart in the back. I have now 3 connectors, 2 for the left and right lights, 1 for the middle one. They are all the same connectors, but they're all lights, so it's not really a huge deal if you had it apart and you hooked up something incorrectly. It's not a big deal. It's not going to cause anything to short out. It's just you might get a left and a middle when you want a left and a right. Let's fire it up. It definitely will do a burnout. I have done a burnout with it already, just after getting the front brakes all hooked up and ready to go. I don't want to do a burnout because I don't want to damage any of the cables or the brakes, since everything is working the way it needs to at the moment, including the hydraulic rear brakes. They're working perfectly fine as well. With the rears, what I did was I saved the fluid from the old one, poured it into the new one, and just let it sit overnight with the cover off. I had a rag over top of it so no dirt would get down into it, and basically let it bench bleed itself. Came out this morning. It was working perfectly fine. This was in the garage all night, so if it did rain, no moisture got into the system, and with the rag, like I said, no dirt got in there either. This one here actually has the battery mounted underneath the fender here, right there. Take it or leave it if you think it's a good idea or not. And then the seat does pop up. But all that's underneath here is the access to the air filter and carburetor. Nothing really. And I guess you got a storage compartment right there. That's where the battery would be on some models. Or you'd have an oil tank somewhere under here as well on some models, if it was a 2-stroke with oil injection. But anyways, that's pretty much it. I'll leave all the stickers on it the way it is. I'm not doing anything else to the actual bike itself. It's done. It's to the point where I'm done with it. I had my fun with it. I put it back together. I got it running, driving, stopping the way it should. It's safe, and it definitely should give somebody years of fun. As long as they keep it maintained, keep the oil changed, keep fresh gas in it, and keep the battery maintained as well, this bike will last. So I'll talk to them later. Please keep it redneck like always, and please subscribe and comment.